Hey guys, it's Lord of the Pogs. Home invasion thrillers are a specific genre of horror movies that includes movies like The Purge, Hush, Don't Breathe, Panic Room, and When a Stranger Calls. Some people say the genre has been overdone, and to a point there are home invasion thrillers that are rather dry, either being too predictable or playing too much into common tropes like the caller is in the house, the killer is wearing a ghost face mask, or there's buried treasure in the basement that the homeowner doesn't know about. But home invasion thrillers done well can be among the most terrifying horror movies, because your home is supposed to provide the greatest sense of freedom, safety, and belonging. Love it or hate it, one home invasion thriller that stands out among the rest is The Strangers. It stands out because of the simplicity of the story. The reason they broke in and killed people was because they were home, and they leave at the end of the movie with no motive and no idea who they are. Director Brian Bertino based the screenplay on the Manson family Tate murders, as well as a series of break-ins he experienced in his neighborhood growing up, where people would knock on the door and ask for someone who didn't live there, then break into the house if no one was home. Although he never cited it as a reference, many people have noted the similarities between The Strangers and the cabin murders that occurred in Keddie, California in 1981. On the evening of April 11, 1981, Shyla Sharp spent the night with the Siebold family, who lived in an adjacent home just 15 feet away. Her mother Sue stayed at home with her brothers John, Rick, and Greg, ages 15, 10, and 5, 12-year-old sister Tina, John's friend 17-year-old Dana Wingate, and the boy's friend 12-year-old Justin Smart. Several neighbors recalled seeing a green van parked at the Sharps' house around 9 o'clock. Shyla and the Siebold family heard no commotion during the night, but a couple living in house number 16 was awakened at 1:15 a.m. by what sounded like muffled screaming. Justin awoke to sounds coming from the living room and saw Sue with two men. One with a mustache and short hair, the other clean-shaven with long hair, both with glasses. John and Dana then came home and started arguing with the men, leading to a fight, and Tina was taken out the back door by one of the men. The next morning, Shyla returned home to cabin number 28, which showed no signs of forced entry, and found the dead bodies of Sue, John, and Dana in the house's living room. Rick, Greg, and Justin were unharmed in their bedroom. Tina was missing, and a search area covering a 5-mile radius around the house was conducted with police canines didn't find her. This was initially investigated as an abduction related to the motive for the murders. A human skull was found 100 miles from Keddie on April 22, 1984, 3 years after the murders, and a forensic pathologist confirmed that it was the remains of Tina in June 1984. Deputy Hank Clement reported blood everywhere on the walls, the bottoms of the victim's shoes, Sue's bare feet, the bedding in Tina's room, the furniture, the ceilings, the doors, and the back steps, suggesting to investigators that the victims had been moved and rearranged after they were murdered. The murders were notably vicious. The phone had been taken off the hook, the cord cut from the outlet, and the drapes were closed. All three suffered blunt force trauma to their heads caused by a hammer and bound with medical tape and electrical cords. 3 bloody knives, one which was bent, and 1 bloody hammer were found, and blood spatter indicated that the murders had all taken place in the living room. Sue was found on her side, nude from the waist down and gagged with her own underwear, which had been secured with tape, stabbed in the chest and throat through her larynx and nicking her spine. Her injuries were consistent with a struggle and an imprint of the butt of an .880 pellet gun on the side of her head. Don had his throat slashed, and Dana had multiple head injuries, and both had been strangled. Autopsies determined that Sue and John died from the knife wounds, and Dana died by asphyxiation. John was found face up, his hands blood-covered and bound with medical tape. His friend Dana was on the floor beside him on his stomach, and his ankles were tied with electrical wire which was wound also around John's ankles so the two were connected. The day the murders were discovered, Martin Smart left Keddie and drove to Reno, Nevada, where he sent a letter to his wife Marilyn, which he concluded with, "I've paid the price of your love, and now I've bought it with 4 people's lives. What else do you want?" A counselor that Martin visited regularly said that he admitted to the murders of Sue and Tina, but claimed he didn't have anything to do with the boys, and that Tina was killed to prevent her from identifying him, since she witnessed the whole thing. Special Investigator Mike Gamberg, who worked for the Plumas County Sheriff's Department in April 1981 but was never assigned to the case, stated that the letter Martin wrote to his wife was overlooked in the initial investigation, not treated as a confession, and never admitted as evidence. 6 potential suspects were named and examined at the start of the investigation. including serial killer Henry Lee Lucas, who was cleared in December 1983. Composite sketches of the two unknown men were produced based on Justin's descriptions by Harlan Embry, a man with no artistic ability and no training in forensic sketching. Why, with access to the Justice Department's and the FBI's top forensic artists, law enforcement chose to use an amateur who sometimes volunteered to help local police was never explained. In press releases accompanying the sketches, the suspects were described as being in their late 20s to early 30s. One stood about 6 feet with dark blonde hair, and the other a few inches shorter with black greased hair. Both wore gold-framed glasses. The primary suspects were Martin Smart and John Boobity, who died in 2000 and 1988, but Plumas County Sheriff Sylvester Thomas said Martin had provided endless clues that threw suspicion away from him, including passing a polygraph. There were rumors that the murders were motivated by drug trafficking, but these were dismissed when Sheriff Thomas stated that no paraphernalia or illegal drugs were found in the home. The most widely accepted motive theory involves a love triangle between Martin, Marilyn, and Sue. It was believed that Sue was counseling Marilyn to leave Martin, and when Martin discovered this, he enlisted John to kill Sue. This would explain why the boys in the adjacent room were spared, and it gives context to Martin's handwritten note. Cabin number 28, where the murders were committed, was condemned and demolished in 2004. To this day, the murders remain unsolved. Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please consider dropping a tip. And don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and hit that little bell in the corner to get notifications on more videos like this one.